How did you get to where you are today on YouTube, influencing, helping people, find and manifesting and stuff like that? How did it all begin?
Yeah. When I was 18, my life was like crashing down, actually. I was like really depressed. I was an
Mm.
addict. I mean, like, not mad or anything. I'm just like, maybe like, maybe just, I think we all have some sort of addictions. So I was coping with life and suffering with just like, or whatever I could attach to. So I think Buddhism would call like grasping or clinging, which is the root of all suffering or whatever. So that brought me into, I want to be free of this like never ending chase for more and the next high and the next thing. And yeah, but suddenly one day it was just like I just couldn't see I just couldn't believe it anymore. I don't know how to explain it. It's like just an awake a realization like, oh, there's nothing to like seek. There's nothing to hold on to. There's nothing that is gonna fulfill me. It's just like a play of whatever I want to create. But then I tried creating and I sucked at creating. So I'm like, okay, it's not just about the awakening. I need to integrate this. And then I had many wounds and unworthiness and lack and had to go into family stuff. And I read the Akashic records and past lives. So past life shit. Then I was like, whoa, okay, I can see through this. I can see through the unreality of things and how like the chase for more is never gonna be fulfilling, but I still want to create stuff. So then I think that's why my approach has been into quote unquote self-realization, enlightenment, awakening, or what I call like emptying the mind and knowing you're not your thoughts and kind of being in a neutral equanimity. And also manifesting the world consciousness because I'm like, okay, you can do that, but then it's also fun to play the game without the attachment with the things, without the this is gonna, I mean, it's awesome. I'd rather cry in a mansion, right? Like, kind of see
Yeah.
it like that way. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, but what if you don't have to cry and you can still keep the mansion kind of thing? So that's my approach. If you get the metaphor, like,
Yeah.
create, have fun, make money, but don't be attached to things. It's not going to be all. Just enjoy the what is and the tribulations. I mean, like I traveled for like 4 or 5 years all over like Europe, the US, by myself. I had like no money, just like creating as I go. Um, yeah. And then built myself by sharing my story. And then people started asking me, like, how do I do that too? How do I become free from suffering? How do I manifest? How do I travel? And I'm like, well, I don't know. But I started getting results by conversations and people shifting just by my energy. And then it became like a business and now it's a success. So
Yeah.
there's more
It's
to it.
sometimes it seems like you're like if you are the type of person that ends up a leader or a role like that, sometimes life leads you that way and you're almost like elected to be that way. Like you may have found that people were asking you your advice, right? Like sort of seeking what you had to say and you're like, "All right. Well then, okay, this is how I did it."
I'll make a thing of it.
You know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It kind of like just happened by itself. Yeah. Although I
Yeah.
always like to talk to like self-expression, but it was like asked of me, like kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, better that way
Yeah.
than somebody that's like going around telling people stuff that they don't want to hear. It's
Right, for
better that way.
sure.
Yeah. Do you find that your brand of teaching is actually really effective based on the time that we live in? Like, because, I was in preparation for this, I was watching some of your stuff, and sometimes you get to the point. It's like, this is the point, and you'll give pretty straightforward direction to how you can start getting into manifesting. Do you find, do you think it's possible that that's more effective because of the day and age we live in? Because the people that have gone before us have sort of provided a fertile grounds for this type of teaching? Is that an element of this?
I would say it could be, although for me that didn't work. For me, it was like really hard. Like all those law of attraction, manifestation, never got it. Like I tried everything and it didn't work. So that's why I needed to go. I was like, if I want to create the life I want, I need to go through enlightenment because my karma was too fucked up.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that are like, well, sign me up for some of that. And they might be wondering, like, what enlightenment is. We have a lot of guests on here who have different varying perspectives and stuff like that. So I'm curious about yours on enlightenment, what you actually think it's all about or what you've experienced and embodied. What is enlightenment for you?
I love that question. It's not believing in my own stories. As simple as that. It's been like it's kind of like having a baby consciousness, being like a baby, like you're so amazed at everything, but also having clear direction at the same time. It's like a wise baby. Like you can be
A
an
wise
80-year
baby.
old. Yeah, yeah, I would say enlightenment. It's a wise baby. You can be an 80-year-old, like grounded in like wisdom, but then you can just be like, oh, a butterfly, oh, this, because there's no fear of dying, there's no doubt, there's no anxiety, there's no like sense of accomplishment that you can relax in whatever it's happening without being like, I'm gonna it's a fear of death actually. I feel like all the fears led to that.
That's so enticing. I bet,
Does that work?
for so many of it, it's enticing to me. The idea that, at least even a reduction, if somebody could suggest that there was a way I could reduce my anxiety, that would be appealing. But the idea that you could actually, get rid of that and move forward without any anxiety, that sounds appealing to me. I don't know. It's an exciting message.
Yeah.
Thanks.
In terms of like your spiritual experiences, because I know it says right on your page, modern day mystic, and that's kind of some of the words we use around here too. One is for those who are like, what the heck is a modern day mystic? Maybe you could explain a little bit about like what that is, and if there's a most memorable experience out there where you really found like you had a spiritual experience, like in either an epiphany moment or like something supernatural that happened to you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I would love to hear some of that.
beautiful. Well, kind of like everything in my world right now functions by synchronicities. Like I don't plan anything, but um what people call like cities, like supernatural abilities, where
Mm.
it's like, oh, this girl can telekinesis. Okay, no, I wish. But but it has happened like way more telepathic messages, way more just like thinking about something and instantly happens. There's no what I'm trying to say is there's no resistance, and the field arranges miraculously by itself to perform the highest possibility for me and also the people that are supposed to co-create that with me. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I hear you.
yeah, it does actually. But just the straight up truth and freedom to step into the type of life that you're talking about. Um, I wonder sometimes, how do you get over that final thing? And like you said, you gave some examples. Sometimes you'll try to reflect it back to them so they can see what they're putting out there and all these different things. But it does sound appealing. It sounds like who wouldn't want to be just happier and freer and able to gain the life that they want.
Well, in terms of manifestation, because a big portion of your channel revolves around manifesting, and nowadays there's like so much content on the internet about the law of attraction, manifestation, stuff like that. From your experience, what do you think? What is the thing that people get most wrong about manifestation?
Doing it from the reality of the program, doing it from being the person. So my alternative is doing it without the doer, but also not bypassing the fact that you don't have to do anything. It's really like, it's subtle to explain. It's like you have to do, but you don't do, but you relax, but you call it in, but at the same time you see through it and you just call in the heart's desire. Because what I see is that everybody has a unique frequency that we already agreed upon that we can excel. This is the highest potential that we have in this incarnation, and everybody has that. And when I help them tune and tap into that, then they realize all these other things that they were seeking and wanting to manifest were just unpurified ego desires. So then I'm like, oh, okay, it's easy when I tap into what's my true heart's desire. And then that just happens by itself because the heart's desire of everybody is tuned in with everybody's highest reality. So the whole collective is like, fuck yeah, I'll support you because it benefits me too. It's like a win-win-win-win-win.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, people like so for like typical people who like, I'm just trying to think of like the most baseline, like your average person who's doing their daily tasks. They go to their 9 to 5, they're living their life, they want something more, they're trying to dream big, but they feel trapped kind of maybe within their world. What is like maybe the first thing that you kind of like train these people or help people to overcome, to maybe start making some steps forward? I'm just trying to think of like that new person, that person who's kind of like new to all this. Maybe someone tripped over this video by accident and they're like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
You know, like, what do you say to that person?
Right. Yeah, I can meet everybody where they're at. I mean, if they can take it, I would be like, burn the boats, just quit your job. And like in trust,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
working with me in trust, I know it would, whoop, or also by self-trust, but they need to know they have to thrive in that reality. But if I have to meet somebody else with like, there's more anxiety, there's more fear, there's more Akashic records thing that needs to be cleared out, I would just ask the question, like, what is the resistance? What are you still believing that the reality is giving you that you will lose or not receive by choosing reality X? Reality X would be the higher reality where you're not bounded to the job. So then you will find the things that are still like locking you into that. So I go through a series of questions and sometimes they open up and there's like, yeah, but when I was 7 and this social anxiety and that, and then we uncover sanskars and then they get memories even from past lives. And I'm okay, we're going through that. And then I
You
feel,
must run
but
into a
with
ton of
everybody's different.
fear. You must run into a ton of fear, though, because I'm sure I'm just thinking of all the things that people would say right off the bat, like, you know, fear of losing security. You know, what are people going to think of me? You know,
What
though.
I say? What are my
What's
friends
that?
gonna say? What are
Yeah,
my parents
yeah,
gonna say? My friends, like, well, how am I gonna make money? I'm gonna lose my house. How am I gonna eat? I'm gonna be in the street. I'm gonna lose all my friends. What about the girlfriends? I'm gonna die. But to me, it's
yeah.
easy to transmit because I've been there. I've lost all my friends, all my money, all my the approval, all my possessions, and I've been in positions where I'm like, and then whoop, the field shifts, and I get support.
Yeah. Well, I know I've heard you in some of your interviews, you showed some interest in kind of like the law of one. And I know in the law of one, it's kind of like all pointing towards a reemergence with the one or oneness, or and then I guess it begins all over again. Maybe it's just a cycle that continues infinitely to play out over and over again. I don't know. But I definitely do find it fascinating. Do you
Yeah.
study the law of one at all? You still
Yeah,
into
I
that,
read
or yeah?
I read all the books kind of like a
Yeah.
geek years ago. Yeah. To me, it's fascinating. And it makes me even more in quantum acceptance of this experience because it's like we want to reincarnate for the game. If
Yeah.
not, we wouldn't be here. We're here for the experience. So the desire for liberation, like, cool. It's like, cool. Okay, that's the end goal. But while we're here, may as well just play the human because that's why we're here. If not, we would be the angels or the energy. So if we just let go of the fear and the anxiety, then we can truly enjoy the human experience without like the paranoia. And that's the goal of being liberated while in the animal. We
Yeah.
would we would be the animal. Like who's
It
the
does.
animal?
It does feel like there's like an aspect of this existence that's about learning some, like learning in a lesson, even if that lesson is experience. But I would be lying if I didn't say that there's been times where I'm like, I don't want any more lessons, God. Just let me have a good time.
Dude, I've been there, like waking up like, fuck, still going. What
Yeah.
now? Left, right, literally. And I'm like, okay, go right. And I'm gonna keep walking.
Yeah. So when you experience that, do you have any practices or rituals that you do kind of like on a regular basis to kind of like keep you grounded in your kind of spiritual connection or whatever you're doing? And if you do, maybe you could share some of them with us.
Well, at this moment, it's kind of like more effortless, but at the beginning, it was a lot of nervous system work because every time we tap into a new reality, our nerves that hold the trauma of this life or past lives has to dissolve so more light love can peer in. What's life love? Conviction, trust, knowingness, ability to receive higher wealth, higher happiness, higher like everything's going to be okay kind of thing. To embody that fully. But when we're like in the trenches of that, we just quit the job, we just got the divorce, we just left the girlfriend, we just invested all of our money in this deal, like whatever, risky things, quote unquote. Quote unquote, you're like, it's risky. I'm like, not that much. And then when you do that, your nervous system and your body is going to be like, because the light, the sanskars are going to, so it's a lot of just sitting with that, feeling into it, breathing, listening and with people or other mentors that are inspiring that already done it. So you gain the conviction of the teacher, like, okay, it's kind of like the monkey see, monkey do. If she can do it or he can do it, I do it too. That works. But then let the body adjust to that reality so it's smooth. Because if you do a quantum jump without the nervous system regulation, then that could be tough. Because then you're gonna be in that reality without the ability to execute. So then
Too
it's like,
much all at once. It's too much. Too much truth or too much something all at once is a system shock. Seems like.
yeah, you've been there. And I learned, so I've always been like, I want to go on the edge. It's been my gift, and it was a hindrance. And yeah, I spent like 6 months in that like burning because I went too far. But I wanted that experience.
Yeah.
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 I think.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
there's also something to be said for like that there's not just one way to be. I feel like maybe you could talk a little bit about this as like I find like there's so many paths that kind of can be taken, and I think sometimes like I've done this before where I've gotten in my head that like even subconsciously that there's one way to kind of like walk this spiritual path, and like you got to be like this and you got to follow these practices, and that's going to be the thing that like gets you to where you need to go. But it's way more nuanced than that, man. And it's like it's bumpy and hilly, and it's not always the same things that bring people to the same realizations or understandings, you know. So
People are different.
yeah, I'm sure you've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it doesn't mean that the paths are going to be bumped. There's a trillion paths that lead to the same road. It's kind of cliche, home, move, like, but it's kind
Yeah.
of true too. Um, it's not the promise of future happiness. I don't think it exists. I think I can be a guide to anybody that can be like, we are all guides. I feel we're all students and we're all teachers. And if you're like 5% ahead in one area of life than the other person, you're a guide in that moment. But somebody can be 10% in another area, and that person is your guide. So I think like everybody has their unique style and way of expressing who they are. And the ones that, including myself, that wants to be like, oh no, I want to use it as a teacher. That's my profession. Then that's my style. But everybody's a teacher, even if they're not as a label. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
sometimes I'll throw that out. Sometimes I reserve the right to be a little paradoxical. Like I'm going to say something and I only mean it right now. I might not even mean it later. But one of the things I say is like be your own guru, if you need to, like
Right.
if that's what's appropriate for you. I also see that it's beautiful sometimes when the guru apprentice relationship, but I'm a fan of everybody kind of having the autonomy to seek things on their own and come to realizations on their own and be bold with.
Yeah, one of the things you said in one of your videos kind of resonated with me, and it was just you were talking about you got to be honest about what you actually really want. There's no point in putting on some fake persona about even just like material luxury. If you want those things, just be honest about it. And there is a part of me that's like, yeah, I want to, I want abundance and and things and stuff like that. But there's also a side of me that like I kind of know there's also an empty side to it. And then I'm coming out of kind of like a Christian fundamentalist background. I'm reminded of scriptures where like the rich man came to Jesus and was like, how do I inherit the kingdom? And Jesus is like, give everything you have away. And then the rich man goes away sad. And I was like, what do you think about, how do you feel about like materialism? Is there too much, too low? Like is there a balance? Like what do you think about that? And in terms of like kind of like the spirituality, prosperity message.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think it's about the intention. What am I going to use my abundance for? Like what I've come into with a lot of students that had to process guilt before it started happening, like better sales, more business success. It wasn't about worthiness. It was like, oh, if I receive this amount of money, I'm going to do bad with it. It was an unconscious voice that's, I'm going to become the greed man. I'm going to dominate. I'm going to control. And then the person blocks its own abundance because it believes it's going to do bad with it. But if you train yourself into what's my intention when I accumulate all this wealth? What am I going to do with it? And then you start acting accordingly, even with what you have right now. If you assume you're already there, why have to start? Why do I become pure in my intention just when I'm the rich man? So it's about integrity. I mean, there's many layers, but that's what I'm going to touch upon.
Yes,
right
and paired with what you just said, I almost think like to that verse about Jesus saying that to the guy, it's almost like, well, if you can't even admit that you want to be rich in the first place, what good is a verse like that? You know what I mean? You're not even going to understand it. It's like, first acknowledge you want to be rich and then maybe try chewing on something like that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like for some people, there's all these extra added layers of pretension to go through first. Like some people can't admit that they actually like luxury. but they're driving around in luxury and working themselves to the bone for it. I'm like, admit that you like it.
Yeah.
Admit that you do want that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it probably comes from a place of where like their environment taught them that it's kind of like taboo to have too many things, right?
Yeah.
So like they feel guilty, like I have too much. You know,
but I want to have it.
But I want to have it.
Yeah, it's a lot of beliefs of like, oh, I'm comfortable with people seeing me with money. I'm comfortable with my parents seeing me succeed. I'm comfortable. I mean, there's so many things. And what if the whole Jesus thing was a test? What if like he wanted him to be like, no, you know what? I'm not going to give up my possessions, but I'm still devoted to the truth and to Jesus and what that represents. Like,
Jesus was such a complicated character. I love that. I love the idea because nobody said that before. That what if Jesus was just testing the guy? Do you really want to do this? You know, it's true.
You shouldn't. Are you sure? Like, bro, I would have kept them. You know, like you imagine that story. Like, well, thank you. You have made it to the kingdom with or without the possession.
Yes, that's brilliant. Yep.
So you said you had some more you wanted?
Well, I was just thinking we've been kind of like going off the cuff, but I just wanted to remember between the two of us, we actually did write down questions, but we've covered a lot of the stuff that I have written down.
Yeah.
I don't know. We have gone over it already, but if you're comfortable, how would you explain enlightenment? This is a topic that comes up over and over and over. We watch videos about enlightenment. And this subject, you know, it's been asked to us. Well, what is it? What is enlightenment? What the heck is it? How would you, in your words, how would you explain it?
Complete self-acceptance of yourself and the rest of yourself. Because there's no self-critique. The little voice that self-abuses oneself disappears. So it's just, you lose the ability to resist.
Yeah.
Lose the ability to resist. To resist?
Your internal bastard goes away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that. Okay, I like that. Yeah. Your internal bastard goes away, and then like you just doesn't mean you're happy all the time. I mean, you can get sad, you can get angry, but it doesn't stick. Nothing sticks. It's like you become more of like a container that's emptier, and then it moves through you. Like anger moves through you, like sadness moves through you, like. It doesn't. Then you're not thinking like, what did I say? What do they think? Am I doing wrong? Am I gonna fail? What are my parents are gonna think? Like, should I act this way? It's like you lose the ability to judge yourself or others.
I love that. I love the idea of pointing that out. Is the very, graspable idea that it's not like you can't feel those things, but it doesn't stick. For some reason, it got me to thinking about some of my favorite teachers along the years. They actually are different depending on when you're watching them speak. It's like his character's different from time to time. Like they're more dynamic than a normal person. They're not so static like most people tend to be. It's like people find an identity and they stick with it. I've seen people that I really admire that are teachers that I'm like, the freaking voice is different this time. It's a different person. And I don't know, maybe some clinicians would see an issue with that, but I think it's cool. I think it's if it's the right type of thing, I think it can be a sign of a dynamic person that's actually existing in the present moment and not existing in some idea of how they ought to be permanently. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, that's another definition. It's like you don't have a set personality.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, Nicole, Nicky, I want to thank you so much for being on the show and sharing all this. This was great. I'm so glad you said yes to this. Maybe as kind of like a last thing, if you have any last message for our audience and you want to let them know like where they can find you and what you got going on, I'll leave the floor to you. Now's your time to let it out.
Yay! Well, everybody come to my lollipop party. Okay, no, seriously. The lollipop one. Trust the girl with the lollipop. She knows. Okay, so, well, right now I have one spot open for high-level mentorship, but what I'm looking for specifically is somebody that already has a business that is going on, that's successful, that has a heart-led intention towards humanity and wants to scale it and rocket fuel it. And just disclaimer that one is $30,000 for 1 month. But I'm specifically looking for that key person that's like, okay, my vision's amazing, I'm making good money, but I want to like be more into my self-realization and the good intentions and whatever, but you can still keep the money. So That's what I'm calling in. And besides that one, if you just want to have an interaction and a talk, and I do 1 hour drop-ins, and you can film the form in my website. And if the price is like a bit higher for you, if you like really write me something that I feel like, okay, this person really wants to connect, I may do an exception because I like helping too. But the price is actually, it's just to see like how committed you are and for you to take it seriously. So that's my disclaimer.
I hear you.
And yeah,